Hello and welcome to the Biblical Principles of Finance, and we're here today with Natalie Tilson. Natalie has been leading some unbelievable studies with us using God's Word to show us what the Bible says about our finances and about the way that we live and how that we should be planning and operating. The Bible is so relevant to what we're doing today. Natalie, it's so great to have you back.
Thank you, Scott. It's good to be back.
Yes, it's going to be springtime here before long.
It is. I'm loving this warm weather that we've been having. I'm hoping that it just continues like this. I just love that. I'm starting to get spring fever, I think.
That's good. It makes you want to sort of clean up the yard, get things ready.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, get ready for the warm weather, maybe do some spring cleaning, things like that. Yeah. You know, those things that we sort of push off, we really don't want to do, but it's kind of like that time to start doing
right.
it.
Sometimes things pile up over the winter that we're not, right. You know, you got company coming over, it's like, oh, I need to get ready for this.
Right.
And sometimes in our life, there are things that happen that we really need to be ready and planning on. And today, you've got a really interesting topic, and I want to encourage you to get a sheet of paper and a pen and come right back to us, because there's going to be some things today that you'll want to jot down.
I sure hope so, Scott. Today we want to talk about kind of like a financial spring cleaning. And I really want to address some of those things that, you know, we have our basic personal financial things that we attend to, you know, paying our bills and things like that. But there's so many areas that we think, oh, I'll deal with that at a later time and maybe push it aside. Well, I really think that it's time that we take this opportunity to focus on those things. And, you know, thinking about this topic, I will admit, Scott, it can be a little down and depressing, because one of the things that we have to really look at is the fact that, you know, we're not going to live forever.
Well, that's right. We're all going to live forever somewhere, but these bodies are going to wear out.
Right.
And
not
that is so true.
Yes.
Yeah. So
not going to always live forever on this earth.
That's
and in
right.
fact, you know, it says in Hebrews 9:27, and inasmuch as it is appointed for men to die once,
That's right.
and after that this comes the judgment. Well, you know, none of us are going to get out of this life alive.
That's true. That's true. And those are some things that God has told us. But yet, Natalie, when somebody passes away, it seems like it's the very first time that somebody has died in our life, especially if it's a loved one or something.
Exactly.
The tearing apart and those things that we have to go through. And that's a very strenuous time.
Right. It really is. You know, it may be a death that you're not expecting. The family is just totally shocked and distraught and just down. Fortunately for that person, if that's a born-again Christian, you know, they're going on to better things.
Yes.
But for the loved ones who are left here, they sort of have to pick up those pieces and carry on in this world. And so what I really hope that we can do is look at ways that we can make it easier for those loved ones that are left here that have to continue on.
Okay.
And sort of look at a little bit of maybe estate planning, legacy planning, that sort of a thing. So one thing I want everybody to consider doing, if you haven't done so already, is first making a little investment in a fireproof safe, or perhaps a bank lockbox.
Okay.
Because we want to look at pulling all of our documents together into one safe place.
That's a great idea.
And communicating that to our loved ones, so
what would these types of things be, like passports?
Well, it can be passports, for instance, and that's where we have to sort of go through those filing cabinets and see, you know, what each of us has.
Right.
We do have to think in terms of, if I'm not here, what would my spouse need?
That's good.
And things like that. Mm-hmm. So first of all, Scott, in this day and age, with everything that we have with our computers, electronics, first I want everybody to take a look at their passwords and update their passwords, the list. Yep. And I realize a lot of people may have that on a spreadsheet or something on the computer. That's great, as long as that is password protected. But I would encourage everyone to use that opportunity to make sure all of those passwords are up to date.
There's so many, I've got one password that I've had for almost 30 years.
Really?
From my very first computer here at the church. A gentleman at church gave it to me.
Oh, wow.
So how secure is that? He's a good friend. But, there's some software packages out there too, and it's hard to know, like LastPass and different things. I'm not necessarily endorsing them. But these are, they encrypt things for you and make it harder for the enemy to get in. But that's such an easy thing. Even at the church this week, we had somebody trying to scam the church.
Oh, wow.
And so those are ways, that we need to plan and be planning forward on that. So passwords up to date is very good.
Make sure that they are up to date.
Yeah. And not the same that they were 30 years ago.
That's a good one.
Don't try to hack me.
But if we do that and we make sure that all those passwords work, because as you know, with security out there, you have to change some applications. You might have to change your password every so often, and you have to have so many characters and a capital, a letter, a number, whatever. Make sure your passwords are accurate.
It's
and
a hassle,
up to date.
but it's for our own protection.
Exactly.
And if you ever get burnt on it, you will never make that mistake again.
That is very true. That's very true. So I would encourage people to do kind of an inventory of all of your passwords, update that, and make sure that you have a printed hard copy that you place in that secure safe or lockbox. And then any of the old ones, shred them. This isn't something that we want to just wad up and throw in the wastebasket. Right. Make sure that you dispose of it properly, because we don't want people getting a hold of our passwords. Yeah. So I would say that that's, one of the first things we need to do is we tidy up and do our financial spring cleaning. The other thing is we need to make sure that we have a current list of bank institutions and bank account numbers. This is very important. If we have a family member in the event of our death who is trying to get a hold of the bank, they really need to know. Don't send them on a wild goose chase. Right. Have it listed out for them. Any CDs that you have, when they mature, that sort of a thing. Right. Make a list for them. Make it easier so that when they're mourning and going through that grief, they don't have all of this on top of dealing with all the grief and the emotion that goes along with losing a loved one.
And as young people who are getting married, some of them like to have their own separate bank accounts, and everybody does their financing a little bit different. But my wife and I, we've had, both our names on the accounts, and that helps too. But still, you need to know what those account numbers are, because in my relationship, my wife does a lot of the banking and things like that. So if something happened to her, if I don't have this down, then it's going to take me months to get up to speed. That's
exactly right. Yeah. So, we want to make sure that we're communicating to each other. And if you have adult children, communicate that to them as well, at least where they can find this information in the event of your death.
Right.
Also, we need an updated list of insurance policies. And along with the insurance policies, we need to make sure that all of our beneficiary information is up to date for our 401ks, for any life insurance policies, and so forth. What we don't want to happen is, if your spouse to go all of a sudden find out that they're not listed as the beneficiary, and because you've not been on top of things, and hopefully if it maybe were a case of someone that had their mother or someone listed, but still we don't want to have to deal with all that and the legal
and that
issues
can get caught up and last for years
trying to get it resolved. Yeah. And it's very simple, just to make sure that whoever you want to designate as your beneficiary, that it's there.
That's right.
Very simple, just a good little housekeeping thing to do. Also, as much as I hate to say this one, we need an updated list of any debts that we have. Hopefully none, because we're trying to talk about getting out of debt and working through that mountain of debt that we have. But still, if we do have debts, we need to have them listed so that those left behind will know what do we need to pay off here.
Because they're not going to be canceled, right?
Right. A lot of times, that's not the case.
Right. Yeah.
So, we need to know what debts are still out there, and we need to make sure that we're taking care of that, through potentially any life insurance policies or anything that get cashed out, and that we cover those debts that were left. Yep. And also, I would say gather all the important information, kind of like you mentioned earlier, Scott, passports, birth certificates, marriage license. That's a big one because a lot of times it's a marriage license that you have to produce to show that, yes, you are entitled to, whatever upon someone's death. Titles and deeds, to your house or any properties that you own, any of your cars or vehicles that you own, and a big one, Social Security cards. Mm-hmm. Memorize your Social Security number, and don't just leave your Social Security card just laying around for someone to get a hold of. Get that in a secure location, such as a safe or a lockbox.
And that one's a little bit scary because a lot of times you don't check on your Social Security account until you're older. So, it could be many years before some people are looking at that, and that's not a very safe thing to do for as hard as you've worked for your money.
Exactly. And then the last thing that I think that we definitely want to make sure that we have in there, and I would encourage everyone, if you do not have a will prepared, to make sure that you have a will prepared. And I would tell everyone to go ahead and prepare a will once you begin to acquire a paycheck and accumulate assets. Because some people may say, well, I'm young, I don't have this to worry about for years to come. Well, hopefully that's the case, but none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. Right. Yep. And especially if you have children, that should really be a no-brainer.
Yeah, the motivation
if you've got minor children, to specify in a will who you want to have guardianship of that child. Wow. That is not something that you just want to say,
leave to chance.
Leave to chance, or I hope somebody in the family would step in. Well, maybe they would, but is it somebody with the beliefs that you have that you would really want raising your child?
Right.
So, let's go ahead and take care of these things now.
Yeah.
While the beauty of this is that we have a say-so.
That's right.
We get to decide how things are going to be distributed, and the guardianship of our children after our death. And I think that that's very important, and we should want to do that. Now, some people may say, well, you know what, Natalie, I don't have children and all my family have passed on, so I don't really care what happens to my assets. Well, I can tell you, I'm sure that there are churches,
oh yes, yeah.
or charity organizations.
Yes.
You don't want to
leave
leave
that. That could be blessed,
yes, through what you have, your assets left from this earth.
Definitely.
And I would really encourage people to go ahead and spell that out. Do you really want a court of law to determine where your money ends up? Because it may end up going to fund things that you don't really agree with.
Right.
So I would say go ahead and take care of that. Now, there are a couple of ways in preparing a will. You can seek the guidance of an attorney, or you can explore preparing online. I know there's like LegalZoom and things like that, but you do need to do your due diligence to make sure that your will is in accordance with any state-specific guidelines that may exist. Okay. And the easiest way, I would just recommend go ahead and pay that few $100s or whatever attorney fee and have the attorney do that so that you can make sure that it is covered with any state guidelines.
That's great. And you've already laid out, a good thing of what you're going to need to go in to talk to that lawyer.
Exactly.
And they will show you even more.
And they can direct
coach you through that.
Yeah, from that point. So, in preparing this, Scott, it made me just wonder, why do people dread doing this and putting it off? I really, sort of pondered that. And I wondered if a lot of times, if, of course we may have trouble thinking about our death, or, we don't want to be away from our family members. So it's something that we put off, and that's understandable, our human nature to do that. But, once we've accepted that free gift of salvation, we know where we're headed, we shouldn't be worried about that. We should be more concerned about making sure that those we leave behind are cared for, and what better way for a final way to make sure that we have them taken care of than to do this and to set up our wheels. And Scott, Jesus set an example for us in doing this very thing, and it always just amazes me how his word just really lays out for us everything about life, and finances are no exception. And Jesus left us his last will and testament. Now think about that. He set the example. He created a will so that when his death, as he knew would come, would happen, that opened up that will for those of us left, his children. He didn't leave us here in chaos and confusion trying to figure out what to do in this life. He spells it out in his word, and we're heirs and we're beneficiaries, and all we have to do is get in that word, and we see what all is open to us and what we have as children of God. So Jesus set that example for us, and I just think that that's a great way for us to follow along in his footsteps and make sure that our children and our loved ones are covered as well.
That is so good, Natalie. And thinking about the eternal, too, for our children and their children, and having a part in our inheritance, whether it's big or small or whatever, but having that say-so is so very, very important.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah, you've done a great job sharing this today, and I want to just talk to you for just a second. Has there been a time in your life when you've asked Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior? What we're talking tonight about is, are you ready to stand before God? And if you are, as Natalie said, there's no fear. You have no worries. If you've turned from your sin and you've asked Jesus Christ in your life, you're going to have a home in heaven. And I want to encourage you, if you've never done that, please give that serious consideration. And you can call the church office here at area code 423-926-5841. Shoot us an email, whatever, text message, whatever you need to do. But we want to help you on your spiritual walk. And what we're talking about here today is what Jesus told us to do, to be ready, to go to heaven and have our lives in order, so that at any time, when God calls us home, that we're ready and we've made a road and prepared a way for our family to not have to be so stressed out in this time of hurt and time of separation that they're going to be going through. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Natalie. Thank you so much. Great job. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Scott.
All right.